Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayantireye Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's going back home, text number 14 onwards. Sampidya payam pashnibhyam vayam utsaryam chane nabhyam koshte avasthapya ridur kantha shishni. Please check your mic. Please mute yourself. When Maharaj Prithu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the doors of his anus with his ankles, pressed his right and left calves, and gradually raised his life air upward, passing it onto the circle of his navel, up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. The sitting posture described herein is called Muktasana. In the yoga process, after following the strict regulative principles controlling sleeping, eating, and mating, one is allowed to practice the different sitting postures. The ultimate aim of yoga is to enable one to give up this body according to his own free will. One who has attained the ultimate summit of yoga practice can live in the body as long as he likes, or as long as he is not completely perfect. Leave the body to go anywhere within or outside the universe. Some yogis leave their bodies to go to the higher planetary systems and enjoy the material facilities therein. However, intelligent yogis do not wish to waste their time within this material world at all. They do not care for the material facilities in the higher planetary systems, but are interested in going directly to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. So, this process of yogasana comes after yam, niyam, pranayam, pratyahar, asana, then dharan, dhyan, samadhi. So Prabhupada says ultimate aim of yoga is to give up this body. This Hatha yoga is to give up this body according to his own free will. Because what the yogis would do, they would, like Prabhupada had explained previously, that our life is actually the number of breaths we take. So these yogis, they would mix the incoming air into the outgoing air. I don't know how would they do that, but somehow they would do that. And they would reduce the number of breaths they are going to take. So that would increase their lifespan. Very long time they can live. But the point is, as long as they're doing this yogic process, and then when they become perfect, they can leave the body anytime they want to, and go anywhere they want to. Prabhupada says some yogis leave their bodies to go to the higher planetary systems. But what they would do is make sure the gross body is here and it is kept safe. So they would either leave it in the cave or somewhere where it is safe. So when they come back, they enter that gross body again. So it's all possible because the yoga siddhis are very, very powerful. But they're all material. There's nothing spiritual in that yoga siddhis. But the real intelligent yogis are the ones, they just want to leave material world altogether and want to go back home, back to Godhead. So that is also possible. Just like Bhishma Pitama did. Of course, Bhishma Pitama, he looked at Krishna when he left his body. But Prithu Maharaj was going to leave exactly like yogis do, sitting in the Muktasan and leaving the and taking the soul out from the uh, Brahmarandra. Let's see what Prabhupada explains further. From the description in this verse, it appears that Maharaj Prithu had no desire to promote himself to the higher planetary systems. He wanted to return home immediately back to Godhead. Although Maharaj Prithu stopped all practice of mystic yoga after realizing Krishna consciousness, he took advantage of his previous practice and immediately placed himself on the Brahmbhuta platform in order to accelerate his return to Godhead. The aim of this particular system of asana, known as a sitting posture for liberation or muktasana, is to attain success in Kundalini chakra and gradually raise the life from the Mooladhara chakra, which is called basic chakra, to the Swadhisthana chakra, and then to Manipur chakra, the Anahat chakra, the Vishuddha chakra, and finally to the Ajna chakra or Agya chakra. When the yogi reaches the Agya chakra between the two eyebrows, he is able to penetrate the Brahmarandra or the hole in his skull and go to any planet he desires, up to the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka. The conclusion is that one has to come to the Brahmbhuta stage for going back home, back to Godhead. However, those who are in Krishna consciousness or who are practicing Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, etc., can return to Godhead without even practicing the Muktasan process. The purpose of Muktasan practice is to come to the Brahmbhuta stage. For without being on the Brahmbhuta stage, one cannot be promoted to the spiritual sky. So the yogis, they really have to practice, and take the prana from basic chakra, Mooladhara chakra, and then lift it up slowly by concentrating. So much of concentration is required. And one can feel the Kundalini going up. And it's not going to happen in a day or so. It takes long time, depending upon our purification, how pure we are. But Prabhupada says, in Bhagavad Gita it says, Mam chayo avyabhichara. The Bhakti yogi, practicing Bhakti Yoga, is always situated on the Brahmbhuta stage. But that Bhakti Yoga has to be proper. Mam chayo avyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena sevate. So that is avyabhicharena Bhakti. Not just doing sometimes Bhakti and most of the times illusory service. If a devotee is able to continue on the Brahmbhuta platform, he enters the spiritual sky automatically after death and returns to Godhead. Consequently, a devotee need not feel sorry for not having practiced the Kundalini chakra or not penetrating the 6 chakras one after another. As far as Maharaj Prithu was concerned, he had already practiced this process. And since he did not want to wait for the time when his death would occur naturally, he took advantage of the Shat chakra penetration process and thus gave up the body according to his own free will and immediately entered the spiritual sky. So he attained the perfection in both ways. Bhakti Yoga also and the Hatha Yoga as well. And since he knew how to do this Hatha Yoga, he had already achieved the Bhakti Yoga perfection. So he just left his body whenever he wanted to and entered the spiritual sky. उत्सर्पयंस्तु तं मूर्धनि क्रमेणावेश्य निःस्पृहः वायुं वायोक्षितो कायं चेद तेजस yayuyujat. In this way, Prithu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. When the spiritual spark, which is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, is forced into material existence, that spark is covered by gross and subtle material elements. The material body is composed of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and false ego. When one attains liberation, he is freed from these material coverings. Indeed, success in yoga involves getting free from these material coverings and entering into spiritual existence. Lord Buddha's teachings of nirvana are based on this principle. Lord Buddha instructed his followers to give up these material coverings by means of meditation and yoga. Lord Buddha did not give any information about the soul, but if one follows his instructions strictly, he will ultimately become free from the material coverings and attain nirvana. But the problem is people don't follow his instructions seriously either. Many Buddhists, I don't want to say all of them, the Buddhist monks, especially it is famous about Dalai Lama, that they eat meat. And Lord Buddha appeared to stop animals killing, unnecessarily wholesale animal killing in the name of yajna. Ahimsa paramo dharma. This was his instructions. So if you are not following Lord Buddha properly, how are you going to attain the final destination that he has set? When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. This spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to the spiritual planet from the Brahman effulgence or the Brahm Jyoti. The Brahm Jyoti is considered by impersonalists to be without variety, and the Buddhists consider it to be void. In either case, whether one accepts the spiritual sky as being without variety or void, there is none of the spiritual bliss which is enjoyed in the spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas or the Krishna Loka. In the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss, and not having any information of Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka, he naturally falls down to the material activities in order to enjoy material varieties. So Lord Buddha, he taught about nirvana or voidism. So everything is void according to him. Or this is the kind of teachings he gave. So Prabhupada said whether it is void or whether it is Brahm Jyoti, because most of the yogis or jnanis, they're going to merge in Brahm Jyoti. Then impersonal, Nirakar, Nirvisheshvadi, all these, if they become perfect, first of all, then at the most they will reach Brahm Jyoti. But in Brahm Jyoti, there are no problems of the material world. No adidevik, no adibhautik, no the atmic klesh. No birth, death, old age, and disease. But, as Prabhupada explained, there is no bliss, spiritual bliss of being in association with Krishna and his devotees, being in service of Krishna and his devotees. Because if just like now in quarantine time, if you're stuck up in the house, even if we have the family members around, it's still boring. We want to go out, meet more people, do our activities. So imagine a spirit soul being stuck up in Brahm Jyoti without any activity, without any meeting with anybody, without any relationships. How boring would that become? There won't be any bliss. So the real bliss is in relationship, loving relationships, and in the act of performing service. When there is love, service is natural. So that is a relationship, or that is a position that soul is looking for, soul is hankering for. So even Brahmjyoti will not satisfy him, and he, as Prabhupada said, gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss. So he falls down again into material world. Khanyakashe dravam toye yatha sthanam vibhagasha shitim ambasi tattejas yado vayu nabhas yumam. In this way, according to the different positions of the various parts of the body, Prithu Maharaj merged the wholes of his senses with the sky. His bodily liquids, such as blood and various secretions, with the totality of air, and immersed with water, the water with fire, fire with air, air with sky, and so on. In this verse, two words are very important. Yatha sthanam vibhagasha. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 5th chapter, Lord Brahma clearly explained to Narad how the creation took place. And he explained one step after another the proper divisions of the senses, the controller of the senses, the objects of the senses and the material elements. And he also explained how they're created one after another. The air from the sky, the fire from the air, the water from the fire, the earth from the water, etc. So how in every element, it was explained in detail actually by Lord Brahma. The other element, the other quality appeared, and so just like in the sky, from the sky the element of touch entered, and then the air appeared, and along with air, the deity of air and other qualities pertaining to it appeared. Similarly, from air, fire to water, water to earth. So when the creation happens this way, the dissolution happens the opposite way. Prabhupada says, it is important to know thoroughly the process of creation as it applies to this cosmic manifestation. Similarly, this body is also created according to the same process by the Supreme Lord. The personality of Godhead, after entering the universe, creates the cosmic manifestations, one after another. Similarly, the living entity, after entering the womb of a mother, who collects his gross and subtle bodies, takes ingredients from the totality of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. The words yatha sthanam vibhagasha indicate that one should know the process of creation and should meditate upon the creative process inversely and thus become free from material contamination. So, yatha sthanam vibhagasha, and it is explained how Prithu Maharaj, he merged the other way around. So in the shloka it is said, Prithu Maharaj merged the wholes of his senses with the sky, his bodily liquids such as blood and various secretions with the totality of water, and immersed air with water, water with fire, fire with air, air with sky, and so on. And then finally, he just merged all the elements back, and then he left. Indriyeshu manastani tanmatreshu yadodbhavam bhutadi nami unyutkrishya mahatyatmani sandade. He amalgamated the mind with the senses and the senses with the sense objects according to their respective positions. And he also amalgamated the material ego with the total material energy, Mahat Tattva. In respect to the ego, the total material energy is centered in two parts, one agitated by the mode of ignorance and the other agitated by the modes of passion and goodness. Due to agitation by the mode of ignorance, the five gross elements are created. Due to agitation by the mode of passion, the mind is created, and due to the agitation by the mode of goodness, false egoism or identification with matter is created. The mind is protected by a particular type of demigod. Sometimes the mind mana is understood to have a controlling deity or demigod. In this way, the total mind, namely the material mind, controlled by material demigods, was amalgamated with the senses. The senses, in turn, were amalgamated with the sense objects. The sense objects are forms, taste, smell, sound, touch. Sound is the ultimate source of the sense objects. So sound is the ultimate source because from sound comes touch, from touch comes taste, from taste comes smell, from smell comes form. The mind was attracted by the senses and the senses by the sense objects, and all of them were ultimately amalgamated in the sky. The creation is so arranged that cause and effect follow one after the other. The merging process involves amalgamating the effect with the original cause. Since the ultimate cause in the material world is Mahat Tattva, everything was gradually wound up and amalgamated with the Mahat Tattva. This may be compared to Shunyavad, voidism, but this is a process for cleansing the real spiritual mind or consciousness. I know it's little, not just little, very, very technical. But this is how he just removed all the coverings and just merged all the elements back into the other elements, and then he left. Now, how Prabhupada explains how it happens in Bhakti Yoga. When the mind is completely washed of all material contamination, the pure consciousness acts. So the contaminations in the mind are enjoying of the senses by the sense objects, or the propensity to enjoy materially. Now, the sound vibration from the spiritual sky can automatically cleanse all material contaminations, as confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we saw how Prabhupada says sound is the ultimate source of the sense objects. But this is the material sound. But the spiritual sound can cleanse the sense objects, can cleanse the mind, can cleanse the propensity to enjoy those senses. This is the power of spiritual sound, as confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. We need only take the advice of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and chant the Hare Krishna mantra to cleanse the mind of all material contaminations. And this may be considered the summary of this difficult verse. Even Prabhupada said it's a difficult verse. As soon as the whole material contamination is washed away by this process of chanting. So material contamination are not these material elements not earth, water, fire, air, ether, not mind, intelligence, false ego, not the sense objects or the um, sense objects or the senses. These are not contamination. Contamination is how we want to enjoy it. So that is cleansed, then there's no problem. And this may be considered the summary of this. Okay. As soon as the whole material contamination is washed away by this process of chanting, all desires and reactions to material activities become immediately vanquished. And real life, peaceful existence begins. In this age of Kali, it is very difficult to adopt the yogic process mentioned in this verse. Unless one is very expert in such yoga, the best course is to adopt the ways and means of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Thus one can gloriously become freed from all material contamination by the simple process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Just as life in this material world has its beginning in material sound, similarly, a spiritual life has its beginning in the spiritual sound vibration. So all we have to do is get more and more, deeper and deeper into chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. With more concentration, more deliberation, more dedication, more sincerity. Just chant. And this will bring the ultimate perfection. Not just no more senses or no more inclination to enjoy the senses or the sense objects. That is something very menial benefit. Ultimate benefit of Krishna Prem, ultimate benefit of entering the pastimes of Krishna and service of Krishna. That's what we can achieve by this chanting of Hare Krishna. Okay, so let's stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so you all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna, Jai Shri
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.